Hello everybody. Today we will be dealing with the last chapter of MMPC 020, that is Business Ethics and CSR. Today we'll be discussing on CSR and Sustainable Development. We'll be discussing what basically is CSR and what is Sustainable Development. We'll discuss different important key challenges that are being faced by sustainable development. We'll discuss on what is the response of the corporates towards sustainable development. We'll also talk about social audit. We'll discuss on ethics and corporate social responsibility, and we will discuss the sustainable development and corporate sustainability. Now, to start with, let us first understand what basically is sustainable development. When we talk about development, we talk about development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. This concept is being coined in the World Commission on Environment and Development report, that is WCED. That report was Our Common Future. So this concept was being coined by World Commission on Environment and Development. Now, what is the significance? Now, the significance suggests sustainable development is a guiding principle. Guiding principle for what? Guiding principle for the global and national environmental policy. Now, how this concept came into inception? In 1987, WCED report, it was being mentioned, which was called as Our Common Future. In 1992, again, this concept was being put forward in Rio Conference, which was on environment and development. The Rio Conference emphasized 3 pillars of sustainability. What are the 3 pillars of sustainability? One is the economic, second one is the social, and the third one is the environmental. Now, when we are talking about the 3 pillars of sustainability, we have the first important pillar, which is called as economic sustainability. When we are talking about economic sustainability, we are ensuring there is a long-term economic growth. This growth is not impacting the society negatively. This growth is without negatively impacting the social, environmental, and cultural aspects of the community. Second important pillar of sustainability is the social sustainability, that is maintaining social equity, that is maintaining community development, and maintaining a stable society. Third important pillar of sustainability is the environmental sustainability. When we are talking about environmental sustainability, it is protecting the environment to support the ecological health and biodiversity. So below is the diagram that is representing the 3 pillars of sustainability. It comprises of environment, governance, and social, that is the ESG. Now, how this corporates response to sustainability? When we are talking about corporate social responsibility, we already discussed that it is the company's voluntary actions that is contributing to societal goals. It focuses on ethical behavior and community engagement. Now, what is corporate sustainability? Companies incorporate sustainability into their business strategies. It includes the products, the processes, the operations that also include the economical, social, and the environmental dimensions. So when we talk about CSR, we talk about the company's voluntary action, and we also talk about the ethical behavior and the community engagement. And when we are talking about corporate sustainability, it is the companies that incorporate sustainability into their business strategies, and it includes the products, processes, operations, including the economical, social, and the environmental dimensions. Now, coming to what is the importance of CSR and corporate sustainability for business. First and very important element we can consider here is the company's competitiveness is being increased. How it is increased? Now, the sustainable practices help in maintaining competitiveness of the company in a global market. Second is profitability is also increased. So these sustainable initiatives can drive long-term profitability. So strong CSR and corporate sustainability strategies enhance the brand reputation and stakeholder trust. So we can conclude that sustainable development is essential for balancing both the present needs as well as the future needs. The corporate responses like CSR and corporate sustainability integrate sustainability into business models. When it is integrated into business models, then whatever activities we do, we discuss, we take into consideration CSR and CS. Another very important thing is when we are connecting this CSR and CS, there is effective management of economical, social, and environmental dimensions which are considered as crucial for the long-term success of the company. Now, when we are talking about this sustainability or CSR, we are talking about one very important aspect is it is difficult to implement because it is difficult to make the people understand, make the people work with a particular system. So there are different important challenges that are faced in order to achieve sustainability. In the global scenario, the developed countries and the developing countries often follow unsustainable economic practices. So when they follow unsustainable economic practices, it becomes difficult for the company to carry on with the businesses in the long run. Second is the barriers to change. According to William Nice, the economic case of sustainable development, the obstacles that we get from the society are the result of lack of information and training and lack of adequate incentives that they're expecting. So if they don't get the adequate incentive, they will not work for a purpose. So the key insight is the sustainable practices are not necessarily more expensive rather than than the current industrial processes. Now there are different important international bodies which are coming forward to help the people in sustainable development practices. Like say we have the United Nations and the World Bank. What is their role? That their need for policies focusing on the corporate interest, technological transfer, and financial sustainable development can be done through the help of UN and World Bank. The institutions should prioritize innovation rather than merely providing funds for incremental cost. So, when we are talking about the role of the international bodies, we are talking about United Nations and the World Bank. When we are talking about the United Nations and World Bank, they provide us different important policies that are to be incorporated such that sustainable development can take place. And different important institutions, they should prioritize, it suggests that different important institutions should prioritize on innovation rather than only providing the funds for incremental cost. So when you only go for providing the fund for incremental cost, the individual development or the entry level development will not take place. Next important aspect is the corporate participation. When we are talking about corporate participation, the companies, it suggests that the companies that engage in environmental stewardship are likely to become leaders in the global economy. It is basically being suggested by Fernando in the year 2009. Now coming to understanding the three pillars of sustainability. When we are talking about the three pillars of sustainability, the first one is we talk about it comprises of environmental system that is concerning the biosphere and the ecological health. It concerns on the economic system that involves maintaining the market stability and economic growth. The three pillars of sustainability also concentrates on social system, that is, it focuses on social equity, community development, and social well-being. Next is the interdependence. The three systems must support each other for the long-term sustainability of the process. There are different important approaches that are being put forward towards understanding sustainability. The first one is the capital based approach. Now, when we are talking about capital, we are talking about money, we are talking about revenue. So, sustainable development relies on maintaining various forms of capital comprising of economic, natural, and social. Now coming to understanding what basically is a weak sustainability and what basically is a strong sustainability. When we talk about weak sustainability, it assumes that substitutability between the different kinds of capital, that is the technological substituting resources are there. So when we are talking about weak sustainability, we are talking about the sustainability that is substituted between different kinds of capital. When we are talking about strong sustainability, we assume there is a natural capital, like say we have the forest that cannot be replaced by any other forms of capital. When we are talking about weak sustainability approach, the three forms of capital are considered equivalent. Loss in one type of capital can be compensated by increase in another. For example, when we are using the chemical fertilizers to restore the fertility of the soil in place of the natural elements, so it can lead to what will happen? It can lead to degradation of natural resources. So when we are talking about weak sustainability approach, we are talking about the loss in one type of capital which can be compensated by the increase in another. So next is we have the strong sustainability approach. Now it suggests that these are different forms of capital and which are complementary but not perfect substitutes. There are different important examples. One, in this strong sustainability approach, we suggested that forests can play a significant role or a unique role in the economic system, and it cannot be any time replaced by the man-made technology. So it implies that conservation of the natural capital is always essential for the true sustainability. We cannot avoid our nature. We cannot avoid the resources coming from the nature. We cannot dwell without using the nature. So conservation of natural capital is essential for the true sustainability. Now, coming to the different important definitions of sustainable development, according to Costanza and all, the amount of consumption that can be continued, the amount, I'm repeating, the amount of consumption that can be continued indefinitely without degrading the capital cost, including natural capital cost, is called as sustainable development. So when we are using a particular amount, it can be continued indefinitely, that we can use it indefinitely without degrading the capital stocks, including natural capital stocks, is called as sustainable development. According to AB and Amro, it suggests that it has a particular important area on sustainable development. It says that to live our values and business principles to meet the needs of the organization and the stakeholders today, thus protecting the sustaining and enhancing human, natural, and financial capital that is being needed in the future. So this is what is being accepted, what is being suggested by AB and Umbro. It says that to when we are living to our values and business principles in order to meet the needs of the organization and the stakeholders, we go for protecting, we go for sustaining, and we also go for enhancing our human resources, natural resources, financial capital resources that is being needed in the future. So sustainable development, we can suggest that, is a multifaceted concept. We cannot take into consideration one concept as the sustainable development. It encompasses the three important dimensions. One is the economic dimension, second one is the social dimension, third one is the environmental dimension. So both the weak and the strong sustainability approaches have implication for policy and practice. Unless and until we practice whatever is being said to be done in the organization, it will be difficult for me to sustain. So both the weak and the strong sustainability approaches have the implications for policy and practice that has to be kept in mind. Third important element is the effective management of the resources and the capital is key to ensuring that there is a long-term sustainability. So when we are talking about sustainable development, it is considered as a multifaceted concept that is encompassing the economical, social, and the environmental dimensions. So both for strong and weak sustainability approaches, there is an implication on the policy and practice. There is effective management of resources and capital is the key to ensure that there is a long-term sustainability of the product. Now, when we are talking about sustainable development, there are different important key challenges that are being faced during the sustainable and, faced faced during the sustainable development. The first one is many firms they behave irresponsibly by polluting the physical environment. How they are polluting the physical environment? Now through releasing the smoke and gas into the atmosphere beyond a particular level which is being specified or mentioned in the law, discharging of the toxic influence into the water body, as a result of which water bodies are dying. And, and third one is the indiscriminately disposing of waste on the land. What will happen? It will help in creating problems, and it can be health problems also. So what is the result of this impact? There is disturbance of ecological balance. See, we understand that that if at all we are doing anything, it might hamper the society, but still we do it. So when we are talking about result impact, the first one is it disturbs the ecological balance. There is increased instances of floods and droughts in the country. There is loss of diversity because people are using the land, loss of diversity, and there is extinction of rare fauna and flora. Now, there are different important points that also make us understand the environmental effect of irresponsible business practices. When we are talking about the environmental impact, the first important impact that we get from the impact is the deforestation. Deforestation is indiscriminate felling of the trees and clearing of vast forest for business activities. So when we are talking about deforestation, there is falling of the trees and there is clearing of the forest such that the space can be utilized for business activities. Now, when we are talking about environmental impact of irresponsible business practices, it can disturb the ecological balance. How it disturbs? Now there is flood prone and drought affected areas due to disrupted water cycles. Now what is the impact of this? Third is impact of livelihood. Now, when we are talking about destruction of old age agricultural practices and traditional arts and crafts. So these are some of the parameters of sustainable development that we take into consideration into a graphical format. Now, for starting with the challenges, we are basically talking of framing a consistent sustainable development process and program, integrating the local and the global responsibilities. Now, next important, now what are the measures taken? The measures taken are different important regulatory government norms are being implemented. So what are the barriers to this? The barriers to this is there is a lack of management vision. Next important challenge is stipulating the sustainable development norms to be followed. When we are talking about this, the different important measures is there is introduction of sector-wise initiatives. Third is the barriers, that is the end of incurring the additional cost. Next important challenge for sustainable development is confronting with the competitors who follow different norms for sustainable development. So whenever you are fulfilling a particular norm, it has to be well communicated to its employees. It has to be well communicated to its employees. So the confronting of the competitors who follow different norms for sustainable development take place. Now, what are the measures that we take into consideration? The first one is the measures that we take into consideration after confronting is there is access to capital and incentives, both monetary and non-monetary. So what are the barriers? The complex method of implementation. The barrier is the complex method of choosing the complex method of implementation. Next important challenge for sustainable development is the value addition. By implementing sustainable development norms and hearing company on profit. Different important measures that are being taken in order to avoid it is there is greater awareness of the stakeholders toward the implementation of the sustainable development practices. Now, what are the barriers in it? The barriers is the opposition from the stakeholders, from the other stakeholders. When there is opposition, it will be difficult for us to implement the task. Now comes what is the need for sustainable development. Now, when we are talking about sustainable development, we are talking about environment, we are talking about of society, and so on and so forth. So, when we are going for, if you why we go for the sustainable development, the first one is economic development take place of a country, along with economic responsibility is being increased. So, environmental responsibility. So what does it say? Now there should be a balance. The industry must have the balance between the ecological preservation. Next important need for sustainable development is the proactive environmental management. There is setting up of the effluent treatment plants, which is called as ETP, and environmental management system, which is called as EMS. There is treatment of toxic waste before release into the environment. So these are some of the important proactive environmental management strategies. Now there are different important challenges that are being faced for sustainable development in business. Now, first important aspect is we need to understand when we are talking about challenges, we need to understand how can the business follow the SDG approach, sustainable development approach. How can the business follow the sustainable development approach? Second is what are the proactive implications? How can sustainable development practices be implemented in the organization? So on and so forth. There are different important approaches that are being used for the understanding the same. The first one is the partial association approach. The second one is the confronting risk, and the third one is playing a responsible role. Now, let us have a brief and or you may say that elaborate discussion on what are the what is party association, what is confronting risk, and what is playing a responsible role. Coming to the first important aspect, the first one is the partial association. When I talk about partial association, we suggest that the companies are complying with the minimum legal requirements, that is imposed by environmental management system, and EIA is environment impact assessment. So when we are talking about partial association, we are talking about the companies that are complying with the minimum legal requirements that is imposed by the environmental regulations. Now, what is the outcome of it? Now, the outcome is the compliance lead to partial adherence to sustainable development norms. So, what are the confronting risks? When we talk about confronting risks, we take into consideration different important aspects. One is understanding the environmental risk. First and very important and the first and very important point is the compliance, understanding the environmental risk. When we talk about understanding the environmental risk, I am talking about the social, economic, and environmental risk. It includes poverty, it includes population increase, it includes pollution. When we are talking about confronting risk, there is another important aspect which is called as risk management. So the companies must identify this risk and develop defense mechanisms. So adopting risk management strategies help address underlying sustainability issues. What are underlying sustainability issues? The first one is playing a responsible role. Playing a responsible role. When we are talking about playing a responsible role, we talk about active involvement. The companies take on an active role in addressing the sustainability issues. Now, what are the initiatives that are being taken? The key initiative is it helps in addressing the climate change and reducing the carbon emissions from the environment. It develops renewable technologies. It maintains energy efficiency and reducing resource consumption. There are different important steps for implementation. The first and very important step is implementation of ETP and EMS. So such that there is proper treatment and disposal of industrial waste. Next is adoption of the green technologies. When we are talking about adoption of the green technologies, we are talking about investment in green efficient technologies. Next is engaging in CSR activities. It supports in the community development. There is biodiversity preservation and clean air clean energy initiative. These are some of the points one has to keep in his mind. So to conclude, businesses must balance economic growth with the environmental responsibility. So the compliance with the legal requirements is a starting point. Compliance with the legal requirement is a starting point, but not sufficient for sustainability. The proactive strategies, like say we have the risk management, we have the innovation, and these are basically essential for the long-term sustainability. Now coming to what basically is corporate response, how this corporate responds to sustainable development. We already understood that CSR is a dynamic concept. CSR is a dynamic concept that is still in the evolutionary phase, and it defined the business's contributions to sustainable development by developing mechanisms that are economically, socially, and environmentally friendly. So when we are talking about corporate development and sustainable development, we are discussing on the following key areas. The first one is protection of labor. Second one is community development. Third one is stakeholder rights. Fourth one is business ethics and supplier relations. And the last one is health, safety, and environmental protection to its employees. Now, let us understand in the worldwide what is called as CSR. When we call up, when we discuss on CSR, according to World Bank Council for Sustainable Development, it is a continuing commitment towards the business. Sorry, by the business. It is a continuous commitment by the business to behave in an ethical manner, thus contributing towards economic development. So while improving the quality of life of the workforce, their families and local communities also come forward for the benefit of the society. So when we are going for CSR, there are different important benefits that we can get out of it. The first one is when implementing or when we are undertaking CSR activities, there is greater credibility and branding. There is stronger community ties. There is improved employee loyalty. There is enhanced profitability and investor confidence. Now coming to the evolution of CSR. The evolution of CSR can be understood in three important generations: the first generation, the second generation, and the third generation. When we are talking about the first generation, we are talking about the philanthropic activities and charitable donations for the social and the economic causes. For example, it started with Tata's, Birla's, Mahindra's family business, that is contributions towards where they contributed towards the education, they contributed towards the healthcare, and also they contributed towards the rural development. The second generation is integrating the CSR into business strategy and long-term sustainability practices. For example, there is regular engagement in the environmental and the social initiatives. When we are talking about the second generation, there is integration of CSR into business strategy and long-term sustainable practices. Third generation is alleviation of poverty. Third generation is alleviation of poverty and addressing the environmental degradation, wherein there is expansion of CSR to cover the different important aspects. One is the business ethics, second one is the human rights, and the third one is the financial financial responsibility. Now coming to the triple bottom line approach. When we are talking about triple bottom line approach, this concept is being introduced by John Elkington in the year 1997, wherein it emphasized on economic, that is profitability and financial stability. It emphasized on social, that is impact on employees, communities, and society. There is another very important aspect, one is that is called as the environment. So when we are talking about environment, we are talking about sustainable use and preservation of natural resources. So what is the significance? The significance is it aims to balance the economic growth of the company. Along with it, it takes into consideration the growth of the social and environmental responsibility, making CSR a holistic approach to business sustainability. There are different important principles of triple bottom line approach. The first important principle is the environmental principle. The environmental principle suggests that the resource consumption should align with the carrying of capacity and renewability of natural resources. The second important principle is the social principle, wherein it suggests that the businesses should invest in human and social capital in their operational areas. Next is the economic principle, wherein there is accountability to both the shareholder and the stakeholder that is considered as crucial for the sustainable operations. Now, there are different important embedding sustainability in business strategy, that is the strategic integration, wherein there is shifting of the focus from the shareholder value to the stakeholder value by integrating the ESG, which is called as environmental, social, and governmental issues into the corporate strategy. Next is the operational integration. It suggests that there is measurable time-bound goals for sustainability and encouraging the stakeholders to identify the major impact areas. Next is organizational integration, that is involving the leadership from the board level down to the operational staff with a dedicated sustainability committee and cross-functional management. So these are some of the important elements such that we can integrate sustainability with business strategy. Now coming to the different important models of sustainability. When the first important model of sustainability is the hierarchical model. When we are talking about hierarchical model, we are talking about the prioritization that is based on resource scarcity, boundaries, and situational agencies. Next example is the Montreal Protocol, that is phase out of pollutants like CFC or to prevent the ozone layer. Next is the Kyoto Protocol, that is it limits the emission of the carbon for environmental sustainability. Now, what are the implications for the companies? The trade-offs between the environmental, social, and economic goals are required for careful consideration and strategic planning. Now, there are different important challenges and trade-offs in sustainable development. The first important challenge is the balance between economic growth and environmental protection cannot go hand in hand. So there will be compliance with environmental norms vis-a-vis maintaining the market competitions. Second important element or the challenge is the different types of technological advancement. So it suggests that with the implementation of the new technologies to reduce the environmental impact is very important, wherein it hinders the growth of the company. Last very important challenge is the social auditing, that is ensuring the business activities are aligning with the sustainability standards and stakeholder expectations. So we may conclude that CSR is a comprehensive approach that is integrating the three important dimensions. One is the economic dimension, second one is the social dimension, third one is the environmental dimension. Next is the evolutionary CSR strategies support the business growth while contributing towards the sustainable development. The company should continue to innovate and align their strategies with the sustainability goals and for the long-term success of the company. Next, let us study what is social audit. According to New Economics Foundation, NEF, it is the process whereby the organization can account for its social performance, report on that performance, and improve it. Next is the social enterprise partnership from UK defines it is a method of organizing to plan, manage, and measure the non-financial activities and monitor both the internal and the external consequences of their social and environmental operations. Next is, what is the purpose of the social audit? Now, when we are talking about social audits, it measures the social impact and the ethical behavior of an organization in relation to its aims and those of its stakeholders. Next important objective of social audit is the considering the key goals, that is evaluating the social cost and benefits for of an organization's activities. Second is improving the accountability and transparency within the organization. Third is ensuring that economic development benefits between the disadvantaged sections of the society. Now, there are different important areas of assessment. The first one is health and safety of employees. Second one is community development and social initiatives. Next is the environmental measure and sustainability. There are different important components that the social audit examine, or there are different important elements that the social audit examine. The first one is the records of charitable contributions and community service. Second is employee welfare programs and the workplace environment. Third is transparency and ethical behavior in business operations. Next is salaries, wages, and equality of opportunities. And the last one, last important element is the sustainable practices and environmental effect. Sustainable practices and environmental impact. Now, how this process of social audit takes place. The first one is we need to go for identification of social responsibilities. That is, we need to have an outline of the social responsibilities and disclose them in financial and sustainability report. That is very, very important. If you don't use a particular fund, it has to be again shown in a report. The second important element in the process of social audit is quantification of social cost and budget and benefit. That means it measures the social responsibilities and activities in monetary terms for evaluation. Third one is the evaluation and reporting, that is creating a report. Evaluation and reporting, that is creating a report based on findings and propose recommendations for the improvement. Now coming to what is the impact and the benefit of social audit. The first one is it promotes social accountability. Only taking the responsibility of the activities will not solve our purpose in framing a particular policy. Rather, we have to see that how it is being impacted. The first one is promoting social accountability. The first one is under social accountability. It suggests that it should identify and address the issues that is related to the community, that is related to the employee welfare, community development, and environmental impact. Second important benefit or impact of social audit is it builds the organizational credibility. That is, it enhances the trust among the people and the reputation among the stakeholders, among the investors and communities. The reputation among these people will also be good. So, there are different important challenges in conducting social audits because there is lack of standardized guidelines or frameworks for conducting the social events. There is difficulty in quantifying non-financial social activities. There is inconsistent disclosure practices as some organizations may choose to keep audits internal. There is limited regulatory oversight or mandatory reporting requirements. Now, what are the different important companies wherein the social audit practices are being followed? The first one is the Tata Group. It focuses on community development. It focuses on employee welfare, and it also focuses on environmental sustainability. Next is we have the HUL. Their emphasis is on the social and the environmental sustainability through various CSR initiatives. Third is the emphasis, wherein there is social audits that are integrated to sustainability reports, that is focusing on transparency and social impact. So next important aspect that we learn is the in it is the ethics and CSR. When we talk about ethics with and CSR or social responsibility, we talk about the ethical behavior is at the core of CSR, that is guiding the companies to act responsibility towards the society and the environment. So social audits serve as a tool to measure the ethical impact of business practices. Next is we need to take into consideration what are the key elements for ethical considerations. The first one is fair treatment of employees and labor rights has to be restored. Second is environmental conservation and sustainable use of sustainable resources use should be incorporated. Third is the fair business practices and community welfare need to be undertaken. So social audits are very, very important for assessing the social and the ethical impact of a company's activities. They enhance the transparency, improve the stakeholder trust, and promote the responsible business practices. Next is the social audit is integral to CSR, ensuring the company's contribution positively to society and thus maintaining social sustainable development. Now coming to CSR and ethics. CSR is the commitment by the business to contribute to economic, social, and environmental development while maintaining the ethical standards. And ethics refers to the moral principles that govern a person's or organization's behavior, distinguishing between the right and wrong. So what is the importance? So ethics will form the foundation of CSR and is also essential for ensuring that business strategies also align with the sustainable and socially responsible development. Now, when we are talking about ethical conduct, we talk about the outlines, the principles, the standards that is guiding a company's decision, okay, and behavior. Next is relationship with the sustainability. The three pillars of sustainability. What are the three pillars of sustainability? One is the economic, second one is the social, third one is the environmental. So it emphasizes that organizations must adhere to ethical standards to ensure long-term sustainable development. Now, what is the consequences of the unethical business practices? We have different important case studies or examples. At Enron, financial misinterpretation and fraud leads to bankruptcy. In WorldCom, accounting scandals and unethical expansion strategies are being taken. At Satyam, financial irregularities that resulted in one of the biggest corporate force in India. So what is the impact? The impact is there is loss of stakeholder trust, reputational damage will be there, financial loss will also take place. Negative impact kya hai? Now the negative impact will be on employees, communities and stakeholders. There are different important ethical implications of strategic decision. The first one is the strategic decision making, wherein the companies must evaluate the ethical implications of their business strategies and the decisions to ensure that the alignment with the CSR and business with the CSR and sustainability goals take place. Next is corporate code of ethics, wherein a company's ethical code should guide management and employees in making socially responsible and sustainable decisions. We also have Johnson and Johnson that follows its company code of ethics to address the different types of ethical dilemmas, and it ensures that the business decisions reflect organizational values and responsibilities. Now, what is the benefit of this ethical and the sustainable business practices? The first one is there is profitability in the business. The companies with strong CSR, the practice for more profitable in the long run due to increased stakeholder trust and brand reputation. Second is the risk management, wherein there is socially responsible companies that is facing fewer risk and legal issues that is compared with the unethical firms. Next is the employee commitment. We take into consideration the ethical companies that attract and retain the committed workforce, which boosts the productivity and innovation. Next is enhanced reputation. When we are talking about enhanced reputation, we identified that the companies that are maintaining high ethical standard always enjoys a positive reputation without holding positive reputation among the stakeholders, among the investors, and among the broader community. So we already discussed there are three important pillars of sustainability development. One is the economic sustainability, second one is the social sustainability, third one is the environmental sustainability. Now coming to what basically is sustainable development and corporate sustainability. So sustainable development is basically a global concept. Is basically a global concept that is aiming to balance our country's economic growth and social economic growth and social inclusion and environmental protection in order to meet the present needs without compromising the needs of the future. Next is corporate sustainability and CSR, the business level concepts that focus on integrating sustainable development principles into corporate strategies and operations. Now, what is the purpose? To explore the shift from micro level sustainable development to macro level sustainable development to micro level sustainable development. So when we are talking about this micro level and macro level, let us first understand what basically is macro level sustainable development. So macro level sustainable development is basically originated at the global and the national levels in response to the different types of threats that is related to the environment. Like say we have the fire threat. Example is the fire threat. So there are key milestones include the Johannesburg Summit 2002 and the launch of various global conventions and protocols like the Kyoto Protocol and the Convention to Biodiversity. This is the macro level. At the micro level, it is emerged as the companies began to adopt sustainability practices within their organization. With the macro level sustainable development goals and to respond the stakeholders' expectations. Now, coming to the global and the national response to environmental threats, there are different important international agencies and conventions which are associated. The first one is the Environmental Protection Agency in US, the environmental agencies in Europe, the Kyoto protocols that is targeted that targets reduction of greenhouse gases. Then we have the Basel Convention wherein it regulates the hazardous waste management. Now we have the company level. What are the initiatives taken by the company? We have the company level initiative. When we are talking about it, we are talking about the companies like the Tatas and the Infosys have incorporated the SDGs into their vision and mission as a result of which, when we are talking about the vision and mission of the company, and then we try to map it. That means The company level initiatives, in company levels, like say we have the Tatas and Infosys, have incorporated SDG into their vision and mission statement. Okay. Next is we have the company level initiative, wherein the companies like the Tata and Infosys have incorporated SDG. They have adopted the standards like ISO 14000, which is being used for environmental management. Next is the corporate sustainability. According to the business approach by Dow Jones, it is also called a sustainability index. So corporate sustainability is a business approach that creates long-term shareholder value by embracing the opportunities and managing risk that is being derived from economic, environmental, and social development. Now coming to the triple bottom line. The triple bottom line basically emphasizes on the three important aspects. One is the economic, second one is the social, third one is the environmental. So a sustainable enterprise contributes to sustainable development by delivering benefits in all three areas. So integrating SDG and corporate sustainability. So there is micro level SDG, there is micro level corporate sustainability. There are different important challenges that are being faced, wherein there is a need for alignment between the macro sustainability goals and company level strategies. We should ensure that the profitability is balanced with the social and environmental considerations. Now, there are different important case studies again, wherein the Tata Group, for example, the Tata Group, it emphasizes on eco-friendly processes and sustainable development strategies in its business processes. Infosys focuses on energy efficiency technologies and sustainable business practices. And then in Infosys, it focuses on energy efficiency technologies and sustainable business practices. So according to World Bank Council for Sustainable Development, according to 180 global companies, here in this Infosys, we have the World Business Council for Development, Sustainable Development. And then what does it do? It mobilized 180 global companies from more than 30 countries to pursue the SDGs. So this is all about today's class. So in this class, we discussed about what basically is CSR, what basically is social accountability. We discussed what is sustainability. We discussed the three pillars of sustainability. We discussed how this sustainable development came into picture. We also discussed that there is a connection between CSR and corporate sustainability. We discussed that whenever we are going for incorporating sustainability, there are different important challenges faced. We also discussed the different important approaches to sustainability, that is comprising of the capital-based approach, that is comprising of the weak versus strong sustainability. There is weak sustainability. We discussed solely on what basically is weak sustainability and what basically is strong sustainability. The weak sustainability is considered as the equivalent, that is the loss in one type of capital which can be compensated by the increase in another. Second is there is a strong sustainable approach wherein there is different forms of capitals are complementary, but they are not they are not perfect substitutes. We also discussed on the different important challenges faced by sustainable development. We discussed the need for sustainable development. We discussed that there are three important approaches for sustainable development. One is the parcel association, second one is the confronting risk, and the third one is playing a responsible role. We also discuss that there is a corporate response to sustainable development. So it focuses on labor protection, community development, stakeholder rights, business ethics and supplier relations, then health, welfare and safety of the employees. So we also discussed on the three generations of CSR. Like say we have the first generation, we have the second generation, and we have the third generation. So we discussed also on the triple bottom line approach, that is comprising of the economic, social, and environmental. We also discussed what basically is social audit, and we also discussed the definition that it is the process where the organization can account for its social performance, report on that performance, and how can we improve it. We discussed on what is ethics and social corporate social responsibility, and last we discussed on what is sustainable development and corporate sustainability. So this is all about today's class. Thank you very much for hearing and have a nice day.